Hello and welcome to episode 83, I think it is, of 10,000 Stitches podcast, a weekly chit chat all about the joys of knitting. My name is Andy and thanks for joining me again this week. If you wanted to find me on the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Ravelry as Purlbug, P-U-R-L-B-U-G. You can find my blog at thepurlbug.com, and then we have the 10,000 Stitches podcast group on Ravelry. I feel like I'm not quite, there we go. If you're looking for links to anything that I mentioned this week, if you are watching this on the embedded video on the blog or the Ravelry thread, everything will be linked right below the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description box below the video, there will be a link to the blog post, and then you can go there and find everything linked right below the video. Hopefully Ravelry actually embeds the video this week. It was really weird. Last week I kept trying to embed the video in the same way that I normally do, and it just didn't want to. It was really weird. So hopefully I don't have that problem again this week. Sorry that happened last week. I don't know what was going on. So very strange. Yeah, I think this is going to be a very sort of like admin heavy episode. I don't have a ton of knitting to show you guys, which doesn't mean I haven't been doing a lot of knitting, but a lot of it is sort of, either I've been showing it off on Vlogmas or there's not much to show on it. So I don't have a lot of knitting to show, but I wanted to take some time this week to talk about sort of the forecast for next year, because I'm pretty sure that this is going to be the last episode I record, I think, in 2017, because I'm not planning on putting up an episode the week after Christmas, so the 26th. So yeah, this will be actually the last episode for 2017. By the way, I am currently recording on Sunday, December 17th, and this episode will go up on Tuesday, December 19th. So yeah, like I just said, the next episode after this will actually go up on Tuesday, January 2nd. So it's going to be a little bit of time off. I am still going to be doing Vlogmas. I have been doing Vlogmas. I will link to the playlist of my Vlogmas videos if you haven't been watching them and want to. And I'm actually planning on doing Vlogmas, I think, all the way through the end of the month. Typically, most people just do it through Christmas, but I figured I would go ahead and just do it through the end of the month. Show a little bit of my time up in New Hampshire and kind of what Wesley and I get up to. And then, yeah, we'll pick back up after that ends with another podcast episode. Also a couple other admin sort of things. I think, so in this past week, well, actually last Saturday, I think I mentioned this. I don't remember if I mentioned it on my episode last week or if I mentioned it on a Vlogmas episode, but I actually hit my 2-year podiversary recently. So that was kind of exciting. And it's funny, this morning I went back and watched just a little bit of my very first episode, and it was actually not as horrific as I thought it would be. I looked very young back then, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And I realized that was probably because at the time that I started recording these podcasts, I had actually already been making YouTube videos for a year prior to that for one of my other channels. And so I had the very lucky situation where getting in front of a camera and talking was not a super unusual skill for me. But I will go ahead and link that in the notes for this episode, just in case you want to go check it out. It's just very funny to see, me from 2 years ago. Like, it's, in some ways, the internet is sort of bad because, you have this record of your entire life that, sort of follows you around. Like, I used to have prom pictures on Facebook from my junior year of high school, and I'm like, oh gosh, ugh. But at the same time, it's sort of nice to have these records of ourselves from years ago. So it's sort of nice to be able to look back and see me from 2 years ago and be like, oh, look, I was just such a cute little baby. So that's one milestone that I hit recently. Another one is that the YouTube channel now has 1,500 subscribers. We passed the 1,500 subscriber mark, which is pretty cool. I think I've talked about this before, but I don't put a ton of weight into like statistics and subscriber counts and view counts and things like that, just because I don't know, like, I know that a lot of it doesn't really mean anything, right? I know that the number of subscribers that I have doesn't really mean anything, right? Because it's not like my view counts seem to be related to the number of subscribers that I have. And I know that, you know, a lot of people might watch these videos who aren't subscribed to the channel, you know, through my vlog or through my blog or through the Ravelry, you know, thread or whatever. So it doesn't really mean anything to me, but it is kind of nice, you know, every time you hit one of those nice round numbers to be like, oh, that's fun. So that happened this last week. And yeah, you know, sort of on the note of those two things, I want to thank everyone who has been here either for the entire past 2 years that I've been doing this, or if you're new and you're just starting, thanks for joining me. You know, more than the subscriber counts, more than anything else, it's really just nice to know that what I say resonates with people, and to know that, you know, there are people out there who care what I have to say about knitting. And I really have been getting a lot of feedback too lately, you know, in the YouTube comments and stuff like that. And that's been really great. And I've really been enjoying that. And so it's been good. And it's been nice to kind of have these milestones happen so that I'm sort of, compelled to like take a little bit of a step back and think about things. And I just want to say thank you, and I'll stop being mushy, but thanks guys. I appreciate every single one of you. So let's stop with the mushy stuff and let's talk about some knitting. We'll do, you know, kind of the usual stuff, finished objects, works in progress, what's coming up next, blah, 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 this week. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a ton of knitting to show you guys. So let's start with my one finished object, which is my hat. I showed this last week. This is my Copycat CC beanie. This yarn is from, I think it's Minnehaha Fiberworks. The tag is in the other room, so I don't have it. But it's from Minnehaha Fiberworks. It's naturally dyed. It's this really beautiful, it's showing up very gray on camera, but it's this really beautiful sort of lavender gray color. And yeah, like I said, it's the Copycat CC beanie. I knit this holding 2 strands of DK weight yarn double on US 10s, which are a 6mm needle. And I cast on 80 stitches and otherwise worked according to the pattern. I did one less repeat than what the pattern calls for and then bound off. And I haven't yet gotten a pom-pom, but I'm planning on getting a pom-pom. I washed this, well, I gave it a soak and dried it. And unfortunately it has grown a decent amount. So, you know, it was already going to be sort of a slouchy, loose hat, which is how I like my hats to be. But it is now very slouchy and loose. A little bit too slouchy and loose. So I'm wondering if any of you guys know of any sort of tips for how to get non-superwash yarn, because this is non-superwash yarn, how to get it to shrink just a little bit. I don't want to felt it. I just want to shrink it the littlest bit. Like, do I need to just wash it in hot water, or is there anything I can do for this? Because I like my hats loose. And I mean, I can wear it like this. It's not like a big deal, but it is just a little bit looser than I would prefer. Or if there's any other tricks that I could do to kind of, you know, even just tighten up this brim part, like is really all I need. But otherwise, I'm really happy with it. And like I said, you know, it's totally wearable. I would just like it to be a little bit smaller. And I totally recommend this pattern to anyone who's looking for just a really basic, simple hat pattern. This one is really great. And I will definitely be making more in the future, because it's also, I feel like, a good pattern to gift to someone. Like if you're not quite sure what someone's style is, I feel like this is really good because it's easy to knit for one thing, and it's very chic and yet casual and very sort of, I feel like it appeals to a wide range of people. So definitely a pattern that I would recommend, and definitely one that I will make again. So that's my only finished object. In terms of works in progress, I have my Advent socks and the laptop case for Wesley, which I don't have here to show you guys because they are both sitting at work. I have been showing off the Advent socks pretty much every time I put in a new stripe. I've been showing those off on the Vlogmas, so you know, you guys can kind of see the progress there for that. I actually, because I left them at work, I have both of the past 2 days worth of yarn that hasn't gone into them yet, so I'm going to be playing a little bit of catch up tomorrow. But I'm having a cozy day today and I just can't be bothered walking all the way up to my office to go get them, so I'll just play catch up tomorrow, and that's fine. And then Wesley's laptop case looks, I mean, I've made progress on it since I showed it to you guys last, but I mean, otherwise it looks pretty much the same, just longer. It's nowhere close to like being done. So yeah, that's also in my office at work. So I don't have either of those to show you guys. But the thing that I do have to show you is my dotted rays. And I actually took the needles out of this. You can see I just have the end caps on because I was afraid that as I was trying to spread it out to show it to you that I would drop a whole bunch of stitches because it is now very large. And so I figured I would put the end caps on just to make sure that didn't happen. But I have started alternating in my third skein of yarn on this. So this is the second skein, this is the third skein. And as a reminder, these are on my standard sock 2-ply base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon 2-ply sock yarn. And it's dyed up in my That Pumpkin Drink colorway. And this is the third skein. This is at full saturation. This second one was at 3/4, and then the first one was at half saturation of the dye mix. And this is the Dotted Rays by Stephen West. Yeah, I know I've shown this off many weeks, so I won't talk too long about it. I just thought I would kind of show it to you guys. And I thought that instead of showing sort of the end that I normally have been showing, I would go ahead and show this end. So the way this pattern works is you really only are increasing on one side, which is the end that I normally show you guys. And then the other side sort of stays very compact, if that makes sense. And so I thought I would show you guys sort of the more compact end because it sort of makes it easier to show off the color changes. So this spot right here, this is where you start, and then it all sort of grows on this side of sort of your cast on. But yeah, you can kind of see that color shift in it. And like I said, I am, alternating in the third skein right now. So you can definitely see that color shift, and I'm really pleased with it. I think it's really blending in well, and I don't have like any really obvious lines of color shift. You can really sort of see the change of color there. But yeah, I'm going to keep alternating the second and third skein probably for another couple rows because I don't have a ton of this left. And then I'm going to do, finish up sort of that wedge that I'm currently on, and then I will probably do one more wedge with the third skein, and then I will bind off. So I definitely am thinking I will be able to get this done before Christmas. Whether I'm able to get it shipped off before Christmas, I'm just not gonna like push it. Like if I do, that's great, but I do want to, make sure that I have a chance to wash it and not necessarily block it, but let it dry and everything before I ship it. So I think I'll definitely get it finished before Christmas, but it might wait until I get back before I ship it off. So, but yeah, this one I'm just really loving it and really enjoying it and really excited to see it once I can actually get it off the needles and really see the whole thing at once. But yeah, just very pleased with it. In terms of what's coming up next, I talked a lot about this last week, and I kind of am going to save the what's coming up next segment for a little bit later, because I guess I forgot to mention this at the beginning. I'm not going to be doing a chit chat segment again this week because, I've been doing Vlogmas. If you want to know what's going on with me, you can watch Vlogmas. And I've just had kind of a boring week. Like it's just, it's been finals week and stuff. So it's like my life has just been pretty boring. So I don't really have anything exciting to report on. So we'll save sort of the what's coming up next towards the end. It will make sense once we get there. I've done no dyeing this past week. I just haven't felt inspired at all. I've just been sort of laying low, and so, no dyeing has happened. And yeah, so let's talk about the knit along. And in terms of the current knit along, when this episode goes up, you guys still have about 2 weeks or so if you want to get things in. We've had lots and lots of finished objects in the finished object thread. I'm not going to show off the prize again only because it is over there and I forgot to grab it, but I've shown it off the past couple weeks. It's that really fun Canadian project bag and the yarn from Artfill, and then the winner's choice of a pattern from Marie Amelie Designs. So yeah, lots of time left to get in, hat, pair of socks if you're fast. And yeah, super excited. I will, of course, close down the threads as usual the morning of the 1st, and then I will announce the winner on the next episode. But since we will hit the beginning of next year before then, I thought I would take some time to talk about what the knit-alongs are going to be for next year, because I also promised last week that I would have them figured out by now. So I did this morning. I got the knit-alongs for next year figured out, so you can see I have them all written down in here. And we're going to be doing sort of the same, I guess, format as this year, right? So we'll do 6 knit-alongs. Each one will be 2 months long. I feel like that's a really good length of time for people, you know, who aren't super fast knitters to be able to get in at least one thing. And, you know, also if you want to get in something, to kind of schedule it around other knitting that you want to be doing, if maybe the color and technique theme isn't something that you're super jazzed about. And it's long enough too that if you are a fast knitter, you can get in a couple of things. So otherwise we'll be doing sort of similar rules, I think, to last year. I'm trying to decide if I want to keep the upper limit on the yarn weight, right? Because this year we've been doing between 50 and 150 grams. And I'm kind of trying to decide if I want to keep that upper limit or if I want to get rid of it, so that if you wanted to, you know, maybe make a sweater or something, you could submit that. Let me know your thoughts on that, because I do think having the lower limit is good, so that, you know, you have to make a little bit of an effort. But let me know your thoughts on that upper limit and whether you think it should stay or go. Yeah, but anyway, so we'll be doing 6 of these knit-alongs. We'll divide it up, you know, 2-month segments. So we'll do, you know, January, February, March, April, etc., etc. And we will, for each one, I've sort of picked a word, or, well, in one case, 2 words, but sort of like a word or phrase that sort of captures the idea of the knit-along, and then there will be, to go with that, a color theme and a technique theme, just like this year, so that it, you know, you can get on either theme and you don't necessarily have to, you know, maybe do a technique that you're not interested, or do a color that you're not interested in. So let's go through them. I feel like I've been making it more complicated than it needs to be, trying to explain it in general terms. Let's explain the specifics. So January and February, sort of the word is winter, of course, and I apologize for any of my Southern Hemisphere friends. Obviously, this is sort of centered in the Northern Hemisphere because that's where I live, and so for me, January and February is winter. But so to go with winter, the color theme for January and February will be blue, and then the technique theme will be stranded or mosaic color work. Because for whatever reason, color work just makes me think of winter. I don't like hats and mittens and things like that. So yeah, it will be stranded or mosaic color work. And I will, of course, talk more about each of these specifically and what that means when we get to each knit along. March and April, sort of the word is botanical. And so that means the color will be green and the technique will be lace. Because again, there's a lot of lace patterns that are sort of leaves or flowers, and that just makes me think of plants. May and June, sort of the word is funky town, and the color is anything neon, right? Neons are all fair game. And then the technique is things that are modular or scrappy. And again, I'll talk about this more once we get there, but you know, things like scrappy socks, or even sort of, I was thinking like the exploration station, you know, where you're kind of doing that in pieces, things like that. July and August, sort of the phrase is little things. The color is speckles, so anything speckled goes. And the technique is, I just realized I spelled technique totally wrong when I wrote it down there. The technique is things that have an all over pattern on them, right? So socks that are completely patterned all over, or, you know, a detailed intricate scarf or shawl, sort of something like that, something that has all over patterning. September and October, the sort of phrase is simple. So kind of like taking it in the opposite direction. The color there is going to be solid pastels, and the technique will be something that is totally vanilla, which is a new technique that I've never done before, but I think it's kind of good to sometimes just really celebrate simplicity and just plainness in a way. And then November and December, the word is tradition. The color will be neutrals again, and then the technique will be cables, because for whatever reason I think of cable designs as being very sort of traditional, sort of like Aran designs and things like that. So yeah, those are going to be the 6 knit-alongs that we'll be having next year. I will, of course, put those into the Ravelry group. I'll write out what I just said in the Ravelry group so that you can see them all listed out. And I want to try and make an effort to make the prize for each knit-along related to the next knit-along, right? And it works very conveniently that the prize for this knit-along is a yarn that is blue, and the color theme for the next one is blue, right? So I will try and sort of continue that as we go along, right? So the prize for January and February, I'll try and make it something green, right, to go with the color theme for the next knit along. And you can see that a lot of these sort of themes are a little bit more broad maybe than this past year was, right? So things like all pastels as the color rather than a specific color. And again, that's just because I like having the theme. And I think, you know, saying pastel or neon or whatever definitely, you know, does provide some structure, but I also like people to be able to participate you know, with a whole variety of colors and sort of takes on the technique themes. So yeah, I want to include as many people as possible, and I feel like these are good knit-along themes. So let me know what you think of those. But I'm super excited about them, and I sort of like this idea of having sort of like a word that maybe isn't necessarily a knitting word, and then sort of thinking about like, how does that relate to knitting? Sort of like an inspiration word, and then how does that relate to knitting? So that's sort of thoughts on the knit-alongs for next year. And then I don't have a question of the week. So my question of the week this week is, what are you doing for the holidays this year? How are you celebrating the holidays? I apologize if you don't celebrate any winter holidays. And I know Hanukkah, I don't think it's over yet, but I know, of course, Hanukkah ends before Christmas. So if you celebrate Hanukkah, how did you celebrate Hanukkah? But I feel like even if you don't celebrate, you know, sort of the Christian holidays that fall around the winter solstice, you know, it still is sort of pervasive, at least in American culture, that, you know, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, you know, you still usually get Christmas Day off and, you know, sort of New Year's and stuff like that. So just how are you celebrating the winter holidays this winter season? But yeah, that's going to be kind of it in a way for the knitting stuff. Like I said, instead of doing a chit chat segment, I want to sort of do like a themed talk at the end of this episode. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about sort of where I'm headed in 2018 in my knitting, and sort of what my plans are and sort of some thoughts I've been having about knitting lately. And if you've been watching Vlogmas, you've sort of gotten a preview of this, but I really want to go a little bit deeper than I went when I talked about it in the Vlogmas episode, whichever one it was, about sort of what my thoughts on knitting for the near future are. So if you want to watch that, hang around. Otherwise, thank you very much for hanging out, and I will see you again in 2018, which is really weird to think about. But yeah, ooh, that's weird. But yeah, I will see you then. Otherwise, let's talk about where my knitting is going to be in 2018. So I'm hoping I'm able to actually communicate the sort of what I want to with this little chat, because I was trying to talk about some of this a couple days ago on Vlogmas, and well, okay, let's get into it, right? So a few days ago, sometime during this past week, I watched an episode of, well, a podcast by The Knitting Monk. And I talked about a Instagram post that he made last week when I recorded the podcast about sort of slowing down his knitting and everything. And so this podcast was actually released this past week, and it's sort of where he is really talking about this, you know, slowing down his knitting and slowing down and just sort of being in the rhythm with what's going on in his life. And so I will link that episode. I highly recommend that you watch it. It's only about 40 minutes or so, and you know, it's really powerful. Like, it's really well done. He really sort of hits the nail on the head. And like I said in that episode of Vlogmas a couple days ago, like, I was just like, yes to all of it, you know, like it just really captured something that I've been feeling lately. And so when I was recording that clip for the episode of Vlogmas, I actually recorded way more than what you guys saw, because I was trying to talk about some of these thoughts that I've been having, and I really was sort of feeling like, you know, the time pressure of like, I can't just keep rambling on about this. And so I really edited it down a lot when I was editing that day of Vlogmas. So today I'm going to try and sort of talk about the things that I was trying to get across there and just didn't and had to edit out. So, right, so, you know, so there was that podcast by The Knitting Monk where he's talking about, you know, slow knitting and just not making this into sort of a thing, like a hobby that's all about, how many projects can I pump out, in a given amount of time. And I feel like this really sort of ties in. If you remember a couple months ago around my birthday, I had said that sort of my year of being 28, I was declaring my year of hand knits. And part of that was that I wanted to wear at least one hand knit item every single day for a year, which I've been doing well at. And have been on top of that. But then the other part of it was that I wanted to knit 10 garments over the course of the year. And so far I have done, I'm trying to think if my blue sweater would count in that, but I've done maybe 1, possibly 0 in that. And 10 was some arbitrary number. If I don't hit 10, that's fine. But the point was that I wanted to knit garments. I wanted to sort of take on these larger scale projects. So this sort of comes together, and it comes together with another video that I've watched, which I will link. And this is sort of a little segment that Simon Sinek, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name, but a little clip that he recorded on like a news show or talk show or something. And he's talking about millennials. And he's talking about millennials like in the workplace and sort of, things like that. But I think there's still some interesting things to sort of glean from this. And of course, I fall within that millennial generation. And I hate a lot of the sort of stereotypes about millennials. And I feel like in this little video clip of Simon, he kind of gets at some of those things that really upset me about like why people stereotype millennials. Because people always stereotype millennials as like, we're lazy, we're entitled, we want everything without working hard for it and all of that. And I really hate that because I'm not one of those people. And he kind of gets at this in that like we were dealt a bad hand. And of course there are lazy millennials, there are entitled millennials, but there are people like that in every generation, right? So we're just going to kind of ignore that because like you get that in every generation. There were lazy and entitled baby boomers, there were lazy and entitled people before them, whatever the generation before that was, right? There's always those people. But what I see, working with a lot of millennials and, being one of them, is that I don't think we are lazy and entitled. I think we're very hard workers and we've been dealt a really bad hand. And, we are drowning under a mountain of student loan debt because we were told you have to go to college because that's how you get a job. But the problem is that because all of us went to college, none of us can get jobs because everyone has a college degree. So, now no one is special. So now you have to go to graduate school and put off, a career and put off a family and all of that. And all of us just kind of said, okay, if this is what we have to do, we'll do it, right? So we all went to college and took on a whole bunch of loans, and then a bunch of us went to grad school and deferred adulthood for even longer. I sort of deferred adulthood until I was about 25. And it now produces all these problems, right? Like, you go to graduate school and you're told, you go to graduate school and you'll get a job, for sure, and you'll be making lots of money. And that's not really the case. And, so we get stuck with these entry-level jobs that are completely unfulfilling and just completely garbage jobs. And if you can get a job, because now it doesn't matter how much education you have, everyone wants experience. And it's like, but you told me I needed education. Now you've completely flipped things. And now I need experience that I can't get because no one will give me a job. So I can't get any experience, right? And I realize this is making me sound very entitled. I get it. But my view of this is that we've sort of been just given the shaft, right? We did everything we were told we were supposed to do. And now the world is completely flipped. And now we aren't being given the opportunities that we were supposed to be getting. And that makes it very hard as a millennial, right? Like we're all drowning under a bunch of debt and we have to work really hard. And of course we can't form relationships with people because, you don't want to get married until you have your career solid, but you don't get your career solid until you're in your 30s. And it just makes me very upset to like talk about this because I don't think millennials are bad. I don't think we're lazy. I don't think we're entitled. I think we're very hard workers who were told one thing and given another thing, and now we're just trying to scramble and catch up. So, that being said, In this, clip, Simon talks about the fact that a lot of millennials don't have patience, right? That we don't have a lot of patience, and that a lot of that is due in part to our upbringing and in part to just the society that we live in now, where everything is sort of instant gratification. And so we don't have a ton of patience, and this is where it ties in with the slow knitting thing, right? I am not a patient person. I don't know if you guys could pick up on that in the past 2 years, but I am not a patient person. Everything I do, I try to do quickly, right? Like, even to the point of, I talk quickly. I know that's a thing. And yeah, I talk at like a mile a minute. And I walk quickly. Like, nothing annoys me more than slow walkers. Oh my gosh. I do everything quickly. I try to cram as much as I can into every single day. And this is good, but this is also not good, right? Because I can sense sort of the burnout on the horizon from this. And I can sense, sort of just in a couple of years, if I don't make changes, I'm going to run myself into the ground. And so I'm trying to do this, in my working life, which is not really what this space is about. So that's why I'm not talking about it here. But I'm sort of, trying to like not be as much of an overachiever in my working life. And I feel like my knitting life is also a place where this needs to happen, right? I need to just accept that I can't do all the things, right? Like I need to slow down, and I need to learn patience. I need to focus on patience. And this is where I think, the fact that I said, oh, this is going to be my year of hand knits and I'm going to make, knitted garments. I feel like past me knew this was coming. And that's why I sort of said garments, because garments are big pieces and they take patience. And this is a thing that I need to work on. So this morning, after I finished coming up with all of the knit-alongs for next year, I also sort of went through my queue on Ravelry and organized it, and I came up with the big projects that I'm going to be making in 2018. And my goal is to actually stick with this, is to say, like, you decided that these were things that you wanted to do, and now you're going to stick with it, and you're going to actually make them. And of course, these are the big things. I will always probably have a pair of socks or a pair of fingerless mitts or something going on. And that, will be sort of the instant gratification thing, and sort of, that's a place where I can sort of do whatever I feel like. When I ball up some yarn, it's like, well, what pattern do I want to make? But for the big things, I need to teach myself, and I need to work on, this patience and follow through, right? Following through a project from beginning to end, right? Saying I'm going to do something and then doing it. So with that being said, I thought I would go ahead and go through my queue and tell you guys what my plan is for 2018, right? And I've sort of structured this in a way to go along with the knit-alongs. But these are the big projects that I want to try and make. And if I don't make all of them, that's fine. The point being that, like, I want to focus on making these before I make anything else. And I want to take each of these and I want to focus on it as a process, rather than the product, right? I want to really work on enjoying my knitting from beginning to end, and, making things that I want to make because I want to make them, and not rushing through just because I want that thing that's going to happen at the end, if that made sense. So I will also try, when I'm editing, to put in a picture of each of these things to give you guys some visual of what it is. But these are, I don't even know how many there's here. It's maybe like 10. These are the 10 things that I really want to make in 2018. First one being the exploration station, because I want to make it real bad. And this one, like I said last week, I will probably actually start it over Christmas. But anyway, so I want to make the exploration station by Stephen West. I want to make Straymoy by Todd Gawkin. This is a big, chunky, thick color work sweater that I've been wanting to make for a long, long time. And I just, my color work is garbage. But this is time for me to figure it out and be patient and learn that process. So, Straymoy. Another one is the Luella Cardi by Susie Sparkles. This is a cardigan that has some lace around the top, and it's one that, again, has been in my queue for a long, long time. And you know what? It's time to just do it. The Hoodie Shawl Cardigan. Again, a really cute one that I'm super excited to make. And that is by Suzanne Summer. The Princess Pullover by Karen Demeller Lawrence. This is this really beautifully cabled pullover sweater that I have fallen in love with. And again, it's one that I think I will really enjoy the process of because I love cables. And I think it will just be, provided I get the right yarn for it, it will be a really fun knit. The Seglione sweater by Marie Amelie Designs. Again, simplicity and elegance and feminine and something that I think I will really enjoy knitting. The Circular Yoke Summer Shirt by Pearl Soho. Another one that it's a very simple pattern, and so it will really allow me to just focus on the knitting process and on the yarn. And then the Morning Ramble Cardigan by Jeffrey Honeycutt, which is a really beautifully detailed cabled ornate sweater. And so part of this, because I'm focusing on fewer projects, I really want to also focus on my materials and, really making sure that I source good yarn for these and that I don't just buy something because it's cheap. Because if I'm going to invest my time, I should also invest my money in it. And so, buying nicer yarns, buying exactly the yarn that I want to buy for a project, and, making sure that I buy enough at the start so that I'm not playing yarn chicken at the end, and so that I don't have to modify the pattern to be, to make sure that I have enough yarn. It's just going to be a year of really slowing down and focusing and teaching myself patience, even when it's really hard. This is a thing that I want to do. And I'm getting towards the end of what I can record for this clip. So I think I'm going to call that it for the podcast. Hopefully all of that made sense. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much. But yeah, if you made it through, thanks very much for watching. Again, thank you to everyone who stuck with me through the past 2 years. And thank you to any new subscribers who've come along within the past 2 years. And yeah, I will see you guys again in 2018. Have a very, very wonderful Christmas and New Year and holiday season. Have a great winter solstice. And yeah, spend time with people you love. And I'll be back and see you guys all again in 2018. Bye.